Allocations, jobs, groups, tasks, what do these all mean? And how do they relate to Docker containers? When you first start working with HashiCorp's Nomad, it can be challenging to face a lot of new terminology all at once. Before we get started, let's look at software versions. We're using Nomad 1.9.3, Docker 24, VS Code 1.92. Let's look at this very simple Nomad job. Starting from the task, we see we invoke the Docker driver. In this stanza, we are telling Nomad to create a Docker container with the image provided. In this case, since there's only one task defined and there's no count set on the group stanza, the group, the task, and job all mean the same thing. A task really is the smallest unit of work inside of your Nomad job. Groups, also called task groups, are primarily used for segmenting your multitask Nomad job into logical atomic units of work that are deployed based on the requirements of the job writer. Fourth job contains two tasks within the same group. The group tells Nomad that the two tasks must be deployed together as a group. This means that both tasks are deployed on the same Nomad client together. If either task fails, it'll take down the entire group. When scaling, both tasks will scale together. 1 of each, 5 of each, 100 of each. A big advantage of having two tasks in the same group is the ability to share resources such as storage, networking, and others. Now, consider this job second job. Each task has its own group. So service 1 has service. Service 2 has service. If one group fails, the other group is unaffected. Scaling happens at the group level, so the two services can be deployed on the same or different nodes. Of course, with separate groups, we lose the ability to easily share resources. I have put together this table that kind of shows visually the differences between, putting your two tasks in the same group or putting them in separate groups. If you want to see this table, it's on the blog, of course, and it's all there for you. So let's talk file sharing. If you have two tasks in the same group, you can share data through /alloc data. If you have separate groups, well, you have a new level of complexity, and you need to figure out how to move files around. Network sharing, if you're in bridge mode or CNI mode in a shared group, typically all the tasks will have the same networking, whereas with separate groups, each of them has their own networking. Now that may or may not be desirable, and really it goes case by case. Failure handling, a single task brings down the whole group. You have separate groups, you can better isolate failing tasks. When it comes to the deployment strategy, with a shared group, all the tasks within the group must be allocated together on the same Nomad client. So you need to make sure that you have a single Nomad client that can take the entire group's resources. With separate groups, we can have the tasks allocated on the same client or separate clients. It really depends on how the cluster wants to deploy that. Scaling, when you have a shared group, well, if you have two tasks and you set your count to 5, well, you have 10 tasks running. With separate groups, you could set one to count 7, the other one to count 4, and you would have 11 tasks. The last thing to consider is change. When you're making changes to your Nomad job and you're publishing them to your cluster, if you have a task in a group of multiple tasks that has a change and has to be restarted, well, the whole group is going to be restarted, is going to be redeployed. Whereas when you have separate groups, only the group with the affected task is going to be redeployed. So the smaller your groups, the less impact your changes are going to have on your services. Think of a job as one or more groups. There isn't really any limit on the number of groups in the same job, though it may become cumbersome to manage a job with too many groups. The last piece is allocations, and we're going to be using the web UI to help us better understand what allocations are. Allocation is the term used by Nomad to refer to an instance of a group that is deployed, being deployed, dead, etc. I'm going to go ahead and copy this Nomad job, and we're going to run that. And you can see that we have a task in a group service 1 and a task in a group service 2. They're going to be created now. This is a very basic cluster I'm running, so they're going to be on the same node. I'm going to let that fire up and look at that. It's running. It doesn't say healthy yet, but I'm sure if I spam F5, it'll say healthy. And you can see here it says allocations, just that word we're looking for. There's 2 of 2 allocations running. And so, well, what is 2 of 2? Well, we expect there to be 2 allocations. One allocation of the group service 1, one allocation of the service 2. And so in this case, both of them are running in healthy. And so we have 2 of 2. So let's go click on one of these. And so as we dig down into the web UI, you can see the breadcrumb at the top here forming, and you can get a pretty good idea just from this breadcrumb of all of the different concepts we talked about. So we have our task, which is, a Docker container, which we defined at the very beginning. We have an allocation, which is particular deployment of the group. We have the group itself, which we defined in our job. And finally, we have the job, which contains our 2 groups. And there you have it. Thank you for watching today's video. If you have questions or comments, please be sure to leave them below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a good night.